Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film my rating and reviews of the Booktube Prize Quarterfinals. I was a judge in the nonfiction category, of course, and I judged, which group did I judge? I have my little notebook, my handy dandy notebook right here. I judged Group B for the nonfiction quarterfinals. So I'm going to go through how I ranked them and give you some of my thoughts about each of the books. So the Booktube Prize, for those of you who don't know, is a prize that was started by Robert over at the channel that used to be called Barter Hordes, but is now, I believe, changed to just be his name. But he also has a Booktube channel that he administers. And this is a prize for readers to read through books, recently released books. We always judge the books from the year previous. So this year we're judging books that were published in 2023. And we start with 48 books in the fiction, 48 books in the nonfiction, and we narrow it down for 4 rounds until we get to the finalists in each of those groups and then judge the winner for this section. So I like to read the nonfiction section. I have been just doing nonfiction exclusively for the past couple years. And this time in Group B, I'm going to go through my thoughts about these books. So in the number 6, so worst to first, in number 6 position was a book that I really did not care for, and that was A Day in the Life of Abd Salama, An Anatomy of a Jerusalem Tragedy by Nathan Thrall. I really had difficulty with this book, not because it was hard to read. I listened to it on audiobook, but I also had the physical book from the library. I felt this book was overly dramatic and emotionally manipulative. This is the story of a tragedy that occurs in Jerusalem where a busload of Palestinian kindergartners gets into an accident, and the accident involves it catching fire. So you can imagine. And I felt the way that the story is told is through the lens of one of the parents of one of the children on the bus. So this Abd Salama, his son was on the bus. And the first third of the book is all about Abd. It details his life history up until this point of this accident. And he was not a great person. Let's be honest. By the time we get done learning about his background, I'm like, why is he the lens for the story? He's a person that I dislike very intensely. He would make decisions and then regret them instantly, but not fix them. And so in the process of making these instantaneous decisions, he ruins the life of 4 different women that he's involved in, from the woman that he's engaged to, that he suddenly breaks off because he hears a rumor, to the woman that he marries on the rebound and then has children with, and then brings another woman into their life, has more children, and then finally is married to a third woman. And all 4 of these women, I feel he treated quite badly, and I did not want to read a story from this man's point of view. I was really frustrated with it. I thought it fed into stereotypes of Arab men in a way that I found quite displeasing. And then the story of the tragedy I found was just emotionally manipulative. You do not need to tell me details, horrific details of small children being injured and killed in order to get me to empathize with the struggles that Palestinians go through. I already empathize with those struggles. And I do feel that, the book does detail how Palestinians are, oppressed day to day by the Israeli government and the Israeli structure, the physical structure of the place, how the different places where Palestinians live are separated out from each other and from Israel, and the Israel, emergency people do not respond to things that happen in the Palestinian sections, and all of that. I wanted to read about that. I want to know about that, but I don't want to be emotionally manipulated while I do it. So just didn't work for me. The way that the story was told, I felt was not for me. So that was in number 6 position. And then moving on to all the rest of the books were good, and I just had to rank them. And this is the way I ranked them, but they were all good books in my opinion. So in 5th position was How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair. I listened to this one on audiobook, and I think this is a book that also was not my favorite, but mostly because of the style of the storytelling. Sophia Sinclair is a poet, and the way that she tells her story is very poetic. And I listened to it on audiobook, and the way that she reads it is very much, if you watched Saturday Night Live in the 80s and 90s, you will remember poet voice. And that is how I felt this story was told, and I just do not care for that. But this is a very slow-paced memoir. About a third of the way in, the author is still only 9 years old. I also have a problem with memoirs that tell very detailed descriptions of the author's very young life, like anything before like 10 years old. Like, I do not understand how you can be recounting very detailed conversations that you overheard, or, you know, things like that. There's a lot of things I don't remember from yesterday, let alone from when I was 6 years old. So I have a trouble with memoirs that detail like very early time periods in people's lives, and this is one of those books. And then the descriptions of the author's life growing up in a Rastafari family in Jamaica, like, I was interested to know about this culture, but it's very male-dominated, very patriarchal. That's difficult to read about. The things that this young woman was exposed to were difficult, but I felt like this book was quite repetitive and did not give a lot of context or reflection around the events that happened in her life. It was just a chronological recounting of things that she experienced. It reminded me very much of Educated by Tara Westover and I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Like, this very these memoirs about young women that grow up in like very specific oppressive families, either religious related or like mental health issue type related. And like, I just feel like I've read this story before, so it didn't feel fresh and new to me. So that one was in the 5th position. In the 4th position was Red Memory, The Afterlives of China's Cultural Revolution by Tanya Branigan. This author, her family, her mom was, her background is that she has relatives that are Thai Chinese, but she grew up in the UK. She moves to China in 2008 as a reporter for The Guardian and stays in China for 10 years. And while she's there, she interviews different people who grew up or experienced the Chinese Cultural Revolution. And she details their stories and how they experienced the Cultural Revolution, what it was like to live through that time period. And that is very interesting to me. I have read quite a bit about the Chinese Cultural Revolution in the last 6 months or so. And I feel like it's such a complex time period, and the culture is so different from what I understand as an American, that it's very difficult to wrap my brain around. And everything I read like adds a few more pieces to the contextual puzzle that I'm trying to put together that is the history of China. So I appreciated the book for that and for what I learned. Overall, it was like super informative and a great companion to some of the nonfiction that I've been reading about this topic. But I kind of felt like sometimes the writing was really awkwardly written, or like there was clumsy phrasing, and it would like pull me out of the narrative, and that was difficult. And I assume that's because of translation issues. The book was written in English, but she was interviewing people in Chinese speaking people, and so I'm assuming that part of that is just like translation between what people said and how she was reporting it. But it wasn't always a smooth narrative to me, and so I had to put something in the 4th position, and so that is the one that ended up in position number 4. But I do think it is a good book, and if you're interested in the Chinese Cultural Revolution, I think it's an excellent addition to other reading that you may have done on the subject. And then in 3rd place, so these 3 from now until number 1 are the ones that I voted to go through, not that they all did. But in 3rd place, I put Rough Sleepers, Dr. Jim O'Connell's Urgent Mission to Bring Healing to Homeless People by Tracy Kidder. And this is a book where the author, Tracy Kidder, follows Jim O'Connell, a medical doctor in Boston, over several years as he conducts healthcare for homeless people or unhomed people. And so at the time when this man, he was a medical doctor, he was being trained to be a medical doctor, and he was approached as he was leaving med school, getting ready to start like his full-time work, to do a year in a new program through Boston Healthcare to provide health services to homeless people. And he never left. He spent his whole career building this program. And the majority of the people that he talks about in this book are the people who don't utilize homeless shelters or other housing that is provided for people who don't have homes, and they prefer to sleep rough or sleep in the wild, basically, and live that kind of a lifestyle. That's what they choose to do. And so Jim O'Connell was providing health services to those people, and he went to them. He had, there was a van, and he would go out in the night and talk with these people and give them medical checkups, and if they needed to go to the emergency room immediately, he would get them there and he would work with them, and he treated them like they were people. He didn't, the problem with homeless people in America and probably other places is we consciously don't see those people, right? We just live our lives, and I'm lucky enough to live in a place where there are, that homeless people are not obviously on the street, but in the cities and whatnot, you just go through your life and don't see those people. And he provided one-on-one services to them, personal health care, and he saw them for who they were. He saw their humanity, and he treated them with respect and dignity, and they responded to that very well. And so he was a very admirable person. He wasn't always a perfect person, and he certainly was, I think, a difficult person to work with. He expected a lot out of people. He gave a lot of himself, and he expected a lot of others, and so he was probably really hard to work for and to work with, but he truly cared about the people that he was providing services for. And this story also demonstrates how much drug addiction and substance abuse intersects with homelessness, and how that colors everything that these people are experiencing, the homeless people are experiencing, and also the people that are trying to provide care for them, what they're experiencing. So I thought this book was really well done. It was heartbreaking, but it was also very readable, and was not just shining the golden light on this Jim O'Connell. It was showing him as the real person that he was. And I'm finding that I am appreciating that more and more in nonfiction. Don't just tell me the good about somebody, show the whole picture. And I think this book did that. So it was very good. And then in the second place position is a book that I ranked number 1 in the previous round, and that is The Underworld, Journeys to the Depths of the Ocean by Susan Casey. This is a book of science writing about exploration of the deep ocean depths, and I found it super informative and really engaging, and I wanted to read it without stopping, and I thought it was an excellently put together book with lots of great pictures, and it was awe-inspiring and informative, and I just loved it very much. And you may be saying, well, Heidi, if you loved it so much and you voted it number 1, how come it didn't make the first place in this round? And that is because I also read a book that was new to me, Eve, How the Female Body Drove 200 Million Years of Human Evolution by Kat Bohannon, which was just everything I want in nonfiction. It is smart, it is funny, it is interesting, it is filled with things that I did not know. It is bringing together the newest science that we understand about adaptation in the human body. It traces the development of the female body from our splitting off from the great apes and to the evolution of what we now know as Homo sapiens, and what the female body, how that transition began in the earliest time period, 200 million years ago, when we weren't even close to in a hominid type body form. The original part that we evolved from was probably some kind of rodent-y, weaselly type creature. And the book really explains how this evolution happened, because, it talks about the womb, and it talks about how we evolved to be, how mammals evolved to feed their young with milk, and the mammary glands, and then the womb, and the brain, and menopause, and sex, and all these topics are explored in how they evolved through the human body, through the female body over time. please, please, please read the physical copy. I implore you to read the physical copy if you are interested in this book, because there are footnotes, and the footnotes are wonderful. They are so funny and informative and like really add to the book and really increase my enjoyment. There's wonderful illustrations in the book as well that are super helpful to understanding the material. If you like Mary Roach books, if you like science, your science on the funny side, then I definitely recommend Kat Bohannon and the book Eve, which is the best book I read in this round. And I am happy to report it did go through to the semifinals, as did The Underworld. So my two top books went through to the semifinals, and I am thrilled that they did. How to Say Babylon also went through from this group, which is not unexpected. I know it's been extremely popular, and it's just memoirs don't always hit for me the same way that other types of nonfiction do. I am a straight nonfiction girly all the way, so I am excited for the two that did go through. I will be reading nonfiction again in the semifinals round. I've already been given my group. I'm reading Group B, so I've already started to read. I only have to read 3 books this time. I've already read 3 that are in my group, so that's exciting. And as always, have absolutely loved the process of reading for the Booktube Prize. It's just a fabulous time. I encourage you all to join in and sign up. If you are not signed up this year, sign up next year. It is super fun and I love it. So thanks again to Robert for organizing the Booktube Prize. I hope you're all doing well. Oh, I will link everything down below so you can find information about the Booktube Prize and all that. And I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I will talk to you later.